The rain battered the windshield as I gripped the steering wheel, my heart pounding louder than the storm outside. I was driving to my boss's house, her house, for a work meeting, but the thought of being alone with Elena Martinez made my stomach twist in ways I couldn't explain. By the time I pulled into her driveway, I was already questioning every choice that led me here. My name is Riley Harper, 25, a junior copywriter at Horizon Media, a sleek advertising firm in Seattle. I'd been there 6 months clawing my way through deadlines and office politics, always under the watchful eye of Elena, our creative director. She was 36, a force of nature, sharp, poised, with dark eyes that could pin you to the wall or make you feel like the only person in the room. Everyone admired her. I was no exception, though I'd never admit how much her praise, or her rare smiles, kept me up at night. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, smoothing my damp curls. This was just a meeting, I told myself. We were finalizing the campaign for a major client, a pitch that could make or break my career. Elena had insisted we work at her place, citing the need for a distraction-free environment. My colleagues had teased me all week. Good luck surviving Elena's lair. But I brushed it off. I needed to prove myself. So why did my hands shake as I grabbed my laptop bag and stepped into the rain? Elena's house was a modern marvel, all glass and clean lines, perched on a hill overlooking the city. The kind of place that screamed success. I rang the doorbell, my pulse racing as the door swung open. There she was, Elena, in a fitted sweater and jeans, her usual corporate armor swapped for something softer. Her dark hair was loose, framing her face in waves, and she smiled. A real smile, not the polished one she used at the office. "Riley, you're soaked," she said. Her voice warm but with that edge of authority I couldn't ignore. "Come in, let's get you dried off." I mumbled a thanks, stepping inside, my sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. The house smelled of cedar and something sweet, like vanilla. She led me to a spacious living room, where a fire crackled in the hearth, and a coffee table was strewn with papers and a glowing laptop. It felt intimate, almost too personal, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about work. "Coffee? Wine?" she offered, gesturing to a tray on the counter. I hesitated, then opted for coffee, needing to keep my head clear. She handed me a mug, her fingers brushing mine for a split second. My breath caught, and I prayed she didn't notice. We sat on the couch, diving into the campaign. Elena was all business at first, her questions sharp, her feedback precise. But as the hours ticked by, the atmosphere shifted. The fire cast shadows across her face, softening her edges. She leaned closer, pointing at my laptop screen, her arm grazing mine. I froze, hyper-aware of her warmth, her scent, the way her voice softened when she said my name. "Riley, you're holding back," she said suddenly, her eyes locking onto mine. "Your ideas are good, but they're safe. I know you've got more in you." I swallowed, my throat dry. "I'm trying," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to mess this up." She tilted her head, studying me. "You think I'd let you fail?" Her tone was teasing, but there was something else there. Something that made my chest tighten. "You're better than you give yourself credit for." I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever looked at me like that, like they saw something I didn't. I'd spent my life playing it safe. Safe job, safe clothes, safe emotions. Growing up in a small town, I'd buried any feelings that didn't fit the mold. I'd dated guys, smiled through awkward family dinners, and ignored the part of me that wondered what it would be like to love someone who wasn't expected. But sitting here, inches from Elena, I felt that part of me clawing its way to the surface. The rain had stopped, leaving only the crackle of the fire and the hum of tension between us. Elena set her laptop aside, her movements deliberate. "You know," she said, her voice low, "I didn't ask you here just for work." My heart stopped. "What?" She leaned back, her eyes never leaving mine. "I've been watching you, Riley. You're different. You don't just follow the script. I like that." I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. Was she saying what I thought she was? Or was I reading too much into it, letting my stupid crush cloud my judgment? Before I could spiral further, she reached out, her hand resting lightly on my knee. It was a small gesture, but it set my skin on fire. "Elena, I started, but my voice cracked. I didn't even know what I wanted to say. That I was terrified? That I'd never felt this way before? That I wasn't sure if I was allowed to want this? She didn't push, just watched me. Her expression unreadable but soft. You don't have to say anything, she said finally. But I'm not going to pretend I don't feel this whatever it is. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I wanted to run, to hide, but I also wanted to stay, to lean into whatever this was. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to play it safe. But could I really cross that line with my boss, with a woman, with everything I'd been taught to fear? The silence stretched, heavy with possibilities I wasn't ready to name. Elena's hand lingered on my knee, her touch steady but not demanding, like she was giving me space to decide what came next. My mind raced. Every warning I'd ever heard about mixing work and feelings screamed at me to pull back, but my heart was louder, begging me to stay. I shifted on the couch, my eyes darting to the papers scattered across the coffee table, a reminder of why I was supposed to be here. We should get back to the campaign, I said, my voice unsteady. It was a weak attempt to regain control, to anchor myself in something familiar. Elena's lips curved into a half smile, not mocking but knowing, like she could see right through me. If that's what you want, she said, pulling her hand back slowly. She leaned forward, grabbing her laptop, but her eyes flicked to mine, holding me in place. But I meant what I said, Riley. I see you. Those words hit harder than they should have. Growing up in rural Oregon, I'd spent years making myself invisible. My parents were kind but traditional, the kind who assumed I'd marry a nice guy and settle down. I'd never told them about the girls I'd secretly watched in high school, the ones whose laughter or confidence made my chest ache in ways I couldn't explain. I'd buried those feelings, convinced they were wrong, or at least inconvenient. But Elena's words cracked something open, and I wasn't sure I could shove it back down. We returned to the campaign, but the air was different now, charged with what hadn't been said. I pitched ideas, my voice steadier than I felt, while Elena nodded, her feedback sharp but encouraging. She was brilliant, her mind weaving connections I hadn't seen, and I found myself hanging on her every word. Not just for the work but for the way she made me feel seen, capable, wanted. As the clock ticked past midnight, the fire had died to embers, and the room felt warmer, closer. Elena stretched, her sweater slipping slightly to reveal the curve of her collarbone. I looked away, my face burning, but she caught me. You're blushing, she said, her tone teasing but gentle. I'm not, I lied, busying myself with my notebook. My handwriting was a mess, a reflection of my spiraling thoughts. She laughed softly, the sound low and warm. You're terrible at hiding it. I risked a glance at her, and there it was again, that look, like she was daring me to be honest with myself. I wanted to tell her everything. How I'd never let myself want this, how her presence made me question every rule I'd lived by. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead I said, why me? I'm just a nobody at the office. Her expression softened and she leaned closer, her voice dropping. You're not a nobody, Riley. You're talented, passionate, and she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. You're someone who makes me want to break my own rules. My breath hitched. Elena had rules. She was the untouchable creative director, the woman who commanded boardrooms and never seemed fazed. The idea that I could unsettle her, even a little, was dizzying. What rules? I asked, my voice barely audible. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I don't get involved with people at work. Ever. It's messy, it's risky, and I've worked too hard to let my personal life jeopardize my career. Then why? I couldn't finish the sentence, but she knew what I meant. Because you're worth the risk, she said simply. The words hung between us, raw and unguarded. I felt exposed, like she'd peeled back every layer I'd built to protect myself. I wanted to believe her, but fear clawed at me. Fear of what this meant, of what I'd have to face if I let myself feel this. I don't know if I can do this, I admitted, my voice shaking. I'm not even sure what I am. Elena's eyes softened, and she reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. You don't have to have it all figured out. Not tonight. Not ever if you don't want to. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Her words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. I'd spent so long running from this part of myself, and now it was staring me in the face, embodied in a woman who could ruin me or remake me. I pulled my hand back, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to breathe. I should go, I said, standing abruptly. My laptop bag felt heavier than it should as I slung it over my shoulder. Elena stood too, her expression unreadable. If that's what you need, she said, but there was a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Just think about it, okay? I nodded, unable to meet her gaze. As I stepped back into the rain, the cold air hit me like a slap, but it couldn't drown out the warmth of her words, her touch, her want. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through the storm. I'd gone to Elena's house for a work meeting, but what I'd found was something far more dangerous, and far more alive. The next morning I woke to the buzz of my phone. Texts from colleagues about the campaign, reminders of deadlines, but my mind was still in Elena's living room. Her words echoed in my head. You're worth the risk. I stared at my ceiling, my chest tight with a mix of fear and something I wasn't ready to call desire. At the office, Horizon Media's sleek open-plan space felt suffocating. I kept my head down, typing furiously to avoid looking at Elena's glass-walled office. But I could feel her presence, like a current pulling me under. When she finally called me in for a meeting, my stomach dropped. Riley, about last night, she started, closing her office door. Her voice was professional, but her eyes searched mine, softer than I'd ever seen them. I didn't mean to scare you off. You didn't, I said too quickly, my cheeks flushing. I just needed time to think. She nodded, leaning against her desk. I get it, but I need you to know I'm not playing games. This, she gestured between us, it's real for me. Her honesty disarmed me. I wanted to tell her I felt it too, that I'd spent all night replaying her touch, her words. But the office walls felt too thin, the stakes too high. What happens if someone finds out? I asked, my voice low. You're my boss, Elena. This could ruin everything. She crossed her arms, her expression tightening. I know the risks. I've spent years building this career, keeping my personal life separate. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I swallowed hard, my mind flashing to my parents, my small-town upbringing, the whispers I'd overheard about people like me. I've never done this before, I admitted. Not with a woman. Not with anyone who matters this much. Her eyes softened and she stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Then let me be the first. The air crackled between us, but before I could respond, a knock on the door jolted us apart. It was Mark, a senior copywriter with a stack of revisions. Elena switched back to boss mode seamlessly, but her eyes lingered on me as I left her office, my heart pounding. The rest of the day was a blur. I threw myself into work, but every email, every meeting felt like a distraction from the real question. Could I let myself want her? At lunch, my friend and coworker, Sam, noticed my distraction. You okay, Riley? You've been weird since the meeting at Elena's. I forced a smile, picking at my salad. Just stressed about the campaign. Sam raised an eyebrow. Sure. People talk. They've noticed Elena's been giving you extra attention. My stomach twisted. What kind of attention? Nothing bad, he said quickly. Just she's tough on everyone, but with you it's different. Like she actually listens. I brushed it off, but his words gnawed at me. Was it that obvious? And if Sam noticed, who else had? By the end of the day, I was a mess of nerves, dodging Elena's glances and fleeing the office as soon as I could. That night I sat on my couch staring at my phone. Elena had texted. Can we talk? Not about work. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally sending tomorrow. Coffee shop on 5th, 7 p.m.? Her reply came instantly. I'll be there. The coffee shop was a cozy, dimly lit place, far from the office's prying eyes. When I arrived, Elena was already there, sitting by the window with 2 mugs of coffee. She looked different outside the office. No blazer, just a soft sweater and jeans, her hair loose. She smiled as I sat down, but there was a nervous edge to it. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said, sliding a mug toward me. I wasn't sure either, I admitted, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. This is a lot. She nodded, her eyes steady. I know. And I don't want to push you into anything you're not ready for. But I need you to know I'm serious about this. About you. Her words hit like a tidal wave. No one had ever been this direct with me, this sure. I wanted to believe her, but doubt clung to me like damp clothes. What if I'm not enough? What if I mess this up? Elena reached across the table, her hand covering mine. You're enough, Riley. You've always been enough. Her touch grounded me, but it also set my heart racing. I didn't pull away this time. Instead, I let myself feel it, the warmth of her hand, the weight of her words. For the first time, I let myself imagine what it would be like to say yes, to let go of the fear and step into the unknown. As we left the coffee shop, the Seattle night cool and crisp, Elena walked me to my car. She didn't push, didn't ask for more, but when she hugged me goodbye, her arms lingered a moment too long. I drove home with her scent still on me, my heart a tangled mess of hope and fear. Whatever this was, it was only beginning, and I wasn't sure I could stop it even if I wanted to. The next week was a tightrope walk. Every glance from Elena in the office felt like a secret, every meeting charged with unspoken words. I threw myself into the campaign, hoping work would drown out the chaos in my heart, but it only amplified it. Her voice, her laugh, the way her fingers brushed mine when she handed me a file, it was all too much and not enough. By Friday, the office was buzzing with the upcoming client pitch. Elena had been relentless, pushing the team to refine every detail, but she was hardest on me. Riley, this headline needs more punch, she'd say, her tone sharp but her eyes soft like she was daring me to shine. I wanted to impress her, not just as my boss but as whatever she was becoming to me. After work, she caught me at my desk. Dinner tomorrow? She asked, her voice casual but her eyes intense. No work talk. Just us. My pulse spiked. Like a date. The word slipped out before I could stop it. Her smile was slow, deliberate. Yeah, Riley. Like a date. I nodded, too stunned to say more. As she walked away, I felt like I just jumped off a cliff. A date. With Elena. My boss. A woman. The thought thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. Saturday night, I stood in front of my mirror, trying on outfits like my life depended on it. I settled on a simple black dress, hoping it said confident without screaming, trying too hard. My small apartment felt too quiet, the weight of the evening pressing down on me. I'd never been on a date like this, never let myself admit I wanted to. Elena had chosen a quiet Italian restaurant downtown, the kind with candlelit tables and soft music. When I arrived, she was already there. In a deep green dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a dream. She stood to greet me, her smile warm but nervous, a reminder that she was human, not just the untouchable boss I'd built her up to be. You look beautiful, she said, her voice low, and I felt my face heat up. Thanks, I mumbled, sliding into the seat across from her. You too. Dinner was a blur of small talk and stolen glances. She told me about growing up in Miami, her Cuban-American family, the pressure to succeed in a world that wasn't always kind to women like her. I shared bits of my own story, my small-town roots, my parents' expectations, the way I'd always felt like I was hiding something. With every word, the space between us felt smaller, safer. After dessert, she reached for my hand across the table. I'm glad you're here, she said, her thumb brushing my knuckles. I wasn't sure you'd say yes. I wasn't sure either, I admitted, my voice barely steady. This is new for me. She tilted her head, her eyes searching. New doesn't mean bad, Riley. It just means you're figuring it out. Her words hit deep, loosening something I'd kept locked away. I wanted to tell her how much she scared me, not because of her but because of what she made me feel. Instead, I squeezed her hand, letting the gesture say what I couldn't. We walked through the city after dinner, the streets alive with lights and laughter. Seattle felt different tonight, like it was holding its breath for us. When we reached my car, Elena stopped, her hand lingering on my arm. Can I see you again? Like this? My heart pounded, but I nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. She smiled, then leaned in, her lips brushing my cheek in a soft, fleeting kiss. It was innocent, but it set my skin on fire. I drove home in a daze, replaying the night, her touch, her words. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where I didn't have to hide. But Monday brought reality crashing back. At the office, whispers followed me. Sam cornered me at the coffee machine. "People are talking, Riley. About you and Elena. Be careful." My stomach dropped. "There's nothing to talk about." I lied, but my voice shook. Sam frowned. "Just watch your back. Office gossip can get ugly." His warning stayed with me, tainting the warmth of the weekend. During the client pitch, Elena was all business, but I caught her glancing at me, her eyes lingering a moment too long. The client loved our campaign, and the team celebrated, but I felt exposed, like everyone could see the truth written on my face. That night, I found a note on my desk. "Meet me at my office, 7 p.m. My heart raced as I walked to her office, the building nearly empty. She was waiting, her expression serious. "Riley, we need to talk," she said, closing the door. "People are starting to notice. We need to be careful. Or decide if this is worth it." Her words hit like a punch. I wanted to say it was worth it, that she was worth it, but fear choked me. Could I risk my career, my identity, everything I'd built, for something I was only beginning to understand? Elena's office felt like a pressure cooker, the glass walls closing in as her words hung between us. Decide if this is worth it. My mouth went dry, and I gripped the edge of her desk to steady myself. I wanted to say yes, to throw caution to the wind, but the whispers in the office, Sam's warning, the sidelong glances, clawed at my resolve. "I don't know how to do this," I said finally, my voice cracking. "I want whatever this is. But I'm scared, Elena. What if this blows up? What if I lose everything?" Her expression softened, but there was a flicker of pain in her eyes. "I'm scared too," she admitted, stepping closer. "I've spent my life keeping people at arm's length. But with you I don't want to." Her vulnerability caught me off guard. Elena, the woman who commanded every room, was standing here, raw and open, for me. It made my chest ache, but it also made the risks feel sharper. "What happens if HR finds out?" I asked. "Or the team? They're already talking." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I know. I've been through this before, not at Horizon, but I've lost jobs, friends, because of who I am. I won't lie, Riley. This could get messy." Her honesty was a knife, cutting through my naive hope. I'd grown up hearing whispers about those people, the ones who didn't fit in. I'd buried my own feelings so deep I barely recognized them. But now, with Elena, they were undeniable, and so were the consequences. "Then why risk it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why me?" She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine. "Because you make me feel alive. Because you're worth it. Even if it's hard." Her words hit like a tidal wave, washing away my defenses. I wanted to believe her, to let myself fall, but fear was a heavy anchor. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Sam. "HR's asking questions. Be careful." My heart sank. Elena saw my expression and frowned. "What's wrong?" I showed her the text, my hands shaking. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't look surprised. "This was bound to happen," she said, her voice steady but strained. "We need to decide how to handle it." "Handle it?" I echoed, panic rising. What does that even mean? Lie? Pretend nothing's happening? She reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. "We don't have to lie. But we need to be smart. No more meetings like this, not here. And we need to talk to HR before they come to us." The idea of walking into HR, of admitting whatever this was, made my stomach churn. But Elena's calm resolve steadied me. "Okay," I said finally. "But I need time. This is a lot." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." The next few days were a blur of tension. At work, I kept my distance from Elena, focusing on the campaign's final tweaks. But every stolen glance, every accidental brush of her hand, felt like a spark in a powder keg. The office gossip grew louder, whispers about favoritism, about Elena's special treatment. I overheard Mark muttering to a colleague, "She's got Riley wrapped around her finger." It stung not because it was true but because it reduced something real to something cheap. At home I wrestled with my feelings. I called my sister Claire, the only person I'd ever trusted with my doubts about who I was. I think I'm falling for someone, I told her, my voice shaking. A woman. Claire was quiet for a moment, then said, Does she make you happy? I thought of Elena's smile, her touch, the way she saw me. Yeah, I said. But it's complicated. She's my boss. Claire laughed softly. Love's always complicated, Riley. But if she's worth it, don't run away. Her words stayed with me, but so did my fear. On Thursday, Elena texted, HR meeting tomorrow, 3 p.m. I'll take the lead. You okay with this? I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment we'd either protect what we had or watch it crumble. The HR meeting was clinical, the room stark and cold. The HR rep, Susan, listened as Elena explained that we'd developed a personal relationship, but were committed to keeping it professional at work. I nodded along, my throat tight, barely able to speak. Susan's expression was unreadable, but she promised to review the company's policies and get back to us. As we left, Elena squeezed my arm. We'll be okay, she whispered, but I wasn't so sure. That night I went to her house, needing answers, needing her. She opened the door, and before she could speak, I kissed her. It was impulsive, desperate, my first real step into the unknown. She kissed me back, her hands cupping my face, and for a moment the world fell away. When we pulled apart, breathless, she smiled. That was unexpected. I'm tired of being scared, I said, my voice trembling but sure. I want this. I want you. Her eyes shone and she pulled me into a hug, her warmth enveloping me. For the first time I felt like I could breathe. But as I lay awake later, her arms around me, I knew the hardest part was still ahead. The office, the gossip, the world, they weren't ready for us. But maybe, just maybe, we were ready for them. The kiss changed everything. It was a line crossed, a door flung open, and there was no going back. Lying in Elena's arms that night, her steady heartbeat against my cheek, I felt a fragile hope, but the world outside her house was waiting to test it. Monday morning, the office was a minefield. Susan from HR called us in separately. With me, she was direct. Your relationship with Elena doesn't violate policy, but we need assurance it won't affect your work. Any sign of favoritism, and we'll have to intervene. Her tone was neutral, but the warning was clear. I nodded, my stomach in knots, promising to keep things professional. Elena's meeting went similarly, but she emerged unfazed, her confidence a shield I envied. We'll be fine, she told me later, her voice low as we passed in the hallway. But the whispers didn't stop. Mark and a few others grew bolder, their comments laced with insinuation. Must be nice to have the boss in your corner, Mark said during a team meeting, his smirk cutting deeper than his words. I wanted to snap back, but Elena's glance stopped me. She handled it with a cool, Riley's work speaks for itself. Let's focus on the campaign. Her authority shut them down, but the damage was done. I felt exposed, like every move I made was under a microscope. At home I wrestled with doubt. Was I ready for this? Not just Elena, but the judgment, the labels, the weight of being out. I'd spent my life avoiding attention, blending in. Now I was anything but invisible. I called Claire again, spilling everything, the kiss, HR, the office gossip. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, I admitted. You're stronger than you think, she said. But you don't have to do it alone. Does Elena have your back? I thought of her steady presence, her willingness to face HR, her hand in mine. Yeah, I said. She does. Then lean on her, Claire said. Love's worth fighting for. Her words gave me courage, but the next day tested it. During a lunch break, I overheard two colleagues in the break room. Elena's risking her career for a fling, one said. And Riley's just riding her coattails. I froze, my coffee cup trembling in my hand. I wanted to confront them, but fear glued me in place. Instead, I slipped out, my chest tight with anger and shame. That night, I went to Elena's. She could tell something was wrong the moment I walked in. Talk to me, she said, pulling me onto the couch. I told her everything, the gossip, the stares, the way it made me feel small. I don't know if I can handle this, I said, tears stinging my eyes. What if they're right? What if I'm not worth this? Elena's jaw clenched, but her touch was gentle as she wiped a tear from my cheek. They're wrong, she said fiercely. You're not a fling. You're not a mistake. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Her words broke something in me and I kissed her, desperate to believe her. The kiss deepened, raw and hungry, and for a moment, the world's judgment didn't matter. But as we lay together later, reality crept back. What do we do about work? I asked. The gossip's only going to get worse. She sighed, her fingers tracing circles on my arm. We keep doing our jobs. We prove them wrong. And if it gets too much, we figure out what's next, together. Her certainty anchored me, but the next week brought a new blow. The client we'd pitched to loved our campaign. But Mark took credit for my ideas in a follow-up meeting, downplaying my role. Elena called him out, her voice like steel, but the damage was done. The team's resentment grew, and I felt like an outsider in a place I'd once felt at home. I started looking at job listings, wondering if leaving Horizon was the answer. But the thought of walking away from Elena, from what we were building, hurt more than the gossip. I was torn, stay and fight or run and protect myself. On Friday, Elena invited me to a weekend getaway, a cabin in the mountains. No work, no office, she said. Just us. I agreed, desperate for a break from the pressure. The cabin was rustic, surrounded by pines, the air crisp and clean. For 2 days we were just Riley and Elena, no titles, no rules. We hiked, cooked, laughed, and made love under the stars. It was a glimpse of what life could be, free from judgment. But Sunday night, as we drove back to Seattle, reality loomed. I don't want to lose this, I said, my voice small. You won't, Elena said, her hand squeezing mine. We'll face it together. Her words were a promise, but I knew the fight was far from over. The office, the world, my own fears, they were waiting. But for the first time I felt ready to face them, as long as she was by my side. The cabin weekend felt like a stolen dream, but Monday's return to Horizon Media was a harsh wake-up. The office buzzed with tension, the gossip now a low hum that followed me everywhere. I caught Mark's smirk as I passed his desk, and even Sam's usual warmth was tinged with caution. I wanted to scream, to tell them all to mind their own business, but I buried it, focusing on my work. Elena sensed my strain. During a quiet moment in her office, she leaned close, her voice low. You're stronger than this, Riley. Don't let them win. Her words fueled me, but they couldn't erase the weight of being watched, judged. I threw myself into the next campaign, determined to prove my worth. My ideas were bolder, sharper, and Elena's praise, public, professional, silenced some of the whispers. But not all. Mark and a few others kept pushing, their comments veiled but biting. Wonder who helped Riley with that idea. I overheard one day, and it took everything not to snap. At home, Elena was my refuge. We'd cook dinner, talk about everything but work, and fall into each other's arms, the world fading away. But the fear lingered. What if this fell apart? What if I wasn't enough, not just for her but for myself? A month later, HR called us in again. Susan's tone was colder this time. There's been a formal complaint, she said. Concerns about favoritism. We're reviewing your team assignments. My heart sank. Elena's jaw tightened, but she stayed calm. Who made the complaint? She asked. Anonymous, Susan replied. But we take these seriously. For now, Riley, you'll report to Mark for the next project. The words hit like a slap. Mark of all people. Elena argued, but Susan was firm. As we left, Elena pulled me aside. This is temporary, she said, her eyes fierce. We'll fix this. But working under Mark was hell. He micromanaged my every move, dismissing my ideas while taking credit for anything that worked. I felt like I was shrinking, my confidence eroding. Elena was furious but powerless. Any pushback would only fuel the favoritism claims. We kept our relationship quiet at work, but the strain was palpable. Late-night talks turned into arguments, not about us but about the situation, the unfairness of it all. One night I broke. Maybe this was a mistake, I said, tears streaming down my face. Maybe we're just making everything worse. Elena's face crumpled, but she pulled me close. Don't say that. We're worth it. You're worth it. Her words kept me going, but the breaking point came during a team meeting. Mark presented my concept as his own and I snapped. That's my work, I said, my voice shaking but clear. The room went silent. Mark stammered, but Elena backed me up, her tone calm but lethal. Riley's right. Credit where it's due. The truth was out and so was the tension. The team split. Some supported me, others sided with Mark. The complaint was dropped, but the damage lingered. I knew I couldn't stay at Horizon, not like this. That night I made a decision. I'm going to look for a new job, I told Elena, my voice steady. Not because of us, but because I need to stand on my own. She looked at me, pride and sadness in her eyes. I hate that it's come to this, she said. But I'm so proud of you. I applied to agencies across Seattle, landing an offer at a smaller firm with a reputation for creativity. It was a risk, but it felt right. On my last day at Horizon, Elena pulled me into her office. This isn't goodbye, she said, handing me a small box. Inside was a necklace, simple and elegant, with a tiny star pendant. For the woman who's finding her light, she said. I kissed her, not caring who saw. The office didn't matter anymore. What mattered was us and the life we were building step by step. 6 months later, I was thriving at my new job, my confidence growing with every project. Elena and I moved in together. Our nights filled with laughter, love, and the kind of peace I'd never known. The world wasn't always kind, but we faced it together. Two women unapologetically in love, proving that some risks are worth taking. The necklace never left my neck, a reminder of the night I chose myself, chose her, chose us. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And in the end, that was enough.